Hi guys, I'm Mark Collier from theopenalgorithm.com, and today I'm going to show you how to automatically search or scrape Google search results. So there are a number of situations when you would want to automatically search Google search results. For example, if you own a website, you might want to track how you rank for a keyword over a period of time, or where your competitors are ranking for a keyword over a period of time. In my case, I'm doing a study or a research study into the Google algorithm, so it's important for me to know the ranking and get a good quality parse of Google search results. Now obviously if you're doing anything more than a couple of hundred or couple of hundred keywords to track per month, you are going to want to automate this task. You're going to want a computer program to do it for you, bring it back, and then you can analyze it from there. You don't want to be searching Google and yourself manually. So there's a couple of service providers that can do this for you. They run keyword ranking reports, they run keyword research reports, whatever they want to call them. Now they're good for some people. They're pretty easy to use, they're relatively inexpensive, and the main benefit is really that they have some sort of inbuilt dashboard. They do the work for you and they're easy to use. If you want to reduce your costs or customize your search, you're going to really need to do it yourself or be using the keyword ranking reports to such a high level that you can ask the company to customize it for you. In most people's case, you won't be able to get the keyword ranking reports customized for you, and in many people's case, especially small website owners, they're not going to be able to afford or want to splash out money on keyword ranking reports with SEO software providers. So that's where a custom built program or script can do the job for you just as well, probably better in terms of cost and customization. So for the keyword ranking reports of medium size, you're going to need around $50. The $50 is going to go towards buying proxies. They're IP addresses that you can send your request through, so that it doesn't look like to Google that a million requests are coming from one IP address, which would look a little bit suspicious to them. You're also going to need some programming language in a general purpose programming language, and a recommendation from me is to have a list of keywords you want to search for. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably already have some sort of purpose for an automated Google scrape, so most likely that'll be checking the ranking for different keywords. So the main thing about it automatically searching Google is that you want your searches to look like a normal user comes to Google in Chrome or Firefox or Safari or whatever, makes the search, goes away, takes away the data, fine. You want to look as natural to Google as possible, because if you don't look natural, then they're either going to block you, which is obviously a disaster, or they are going to return poor quality results or do it in slow response times, which is just going to slow down your stuff and give you bad results. Just to let you know, it is technically against the Google Terms of Service to automatically search Google, but they seem to let it pass if you're not doing anything particularly bad with the data. I think it was mainly implemented as a way to save resources, but in general you'll be absolutely fine if you take these recommendations, and you'll never get any sort of slap from Google if you implement an excellent script. So there's 5 steps to automatically searching Google. One of the steps has 8 sub-steps. The first one will be to set up a number of proxies. This one here. What you want is to look at the number of queries you're going to be doing, and then you want to figure out how many proxies you need for that query, that number of queries. So a general recommendation would be not to send over 1,000 queries per proxy per day. You can push that boundary, you can get away with it, but a general tip would just be to stick to that around 1,000 a day per proxy. Now if you were trying to push the bounds of costs, you could certainly do a good bit more than 1,000 per day per proxy, but you're pushing the boundaries in terms of Google bans and penalties and stuff like that as well. So there's a whole load of proxy providers, if you don't have any proxies yourself, that are really easy to use. For example, I use the trustedproxies.com proxy service provider, and I'll tell you about their special Google extractor product, which is custom built proxy for searching Google later. The second step is to get yourself a list of approximately 10 user agent strings. User agent strings are basically sort of like headers you send to Google when you make a search result. And the browser, if you're searching in your browser, for example Chrome, the Chrome sends it to Google automatically. Now within these headers are things like your language preferences and other things like IP addresses and stuff like that. Now, or your operating system, sorry. What you want to do is look as natural to Google as possible. So if you're sending all your requests from the same user agent string, even if you're changing your IP address, first of all it could look unnatural to Google, and second of all Google may customize your search results based on the headers you send them. And obviously if you want to get a general view of what users would see, you might want to use a mix of different user agent strings to get a similar result to what a user would see. So what you can do is, there are a whole load of websites that give you sample user agent strings based on the browser. What I would do is go find the list of the top 5 most popular browsers, take about 2 or 3 user agent strings per browser, and use them as your list of user agent strings to randomly iterate through. Third thing you need is a programmatic way to implement time-stops, parse HTML, and request web pages. Within Python, that's extremely easy to use. Within any general purpose programming language, I'd imagine there's plenty of modules and scripts that you can download, or libraries that you can download to help you with that. There may even be inbuilt modules. For example, with Python you have URLlib to request pages, web pages, and to implement random time-stops as well, you have random. Within Python then there are a couple of tools you can use for this. Beautiful Soup is an excellent tool to parse HTML. The random module, which is an inbuilt module, is an excellent one to implement either random time-stops or choose from a random list of anything. So you could have your list of user agent strings and it'll randomly choose one of those user agent strings each time you send a result or send a request. And then I use the HTTP request library, which is an excellent way to request HTTP pages or HTML pages from the web, and you get back the HTML of that page. And then it's up to you to go and mine data from that HTML and use it whatever way you want. So, after we have those 3 things figured out, you are moving on to the 4th step, which is actually writing the script that will go and request the search result from Google, and then we're going to mine the data that we want from that request. So the first thing you need to do is to write a script that iterates through a list of keywords. So you're going to need a list of keywords that you want to search for, and then you want a script that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, goes through the list of keywords and searches for them. The second thing you need to do is create your search URL with your keyword. Now your search URL is going to be http www.google.com/search, and now you're going to put in your question mark. This lets Google know that it is a query, and then you are going to put in the various parameters you need. A required parameter, probably I think the only required parameter for a Google search URL is the query, what you are searching for. So the way you identify a search query parameter is to put in Q, which stands for query, is equal to whatever keywords you are searching for. If you have more than one keyword, between each keyword you need a plus sign. After that, it's up to you if you want to add any more parameters. The break between parameters is the little and symbol, like this here, and you can add as many parameters as you want. For example, there are parameters such as num equals. Num stands for the number of search results, so if you wanted to get back the top 100 search results, you could simply implement a parameter that said and num equals 100. There are other parameters such as setting personalization off, and you can also set language or geo-target results within the search URL parameters. There's a bunch of articles out there on the web. Just do a quick Google search for something like Google search URL parameters or Google search parameters, and you'll be able to find a whole list of them, probably all the ones available, and you'll be able to implement whatever you want. And then what you need to do to make yourself look natural to Google is either to implement random 1 to 10 second time stops or random proxy iteration. So if you're coming from maybe 1 to 3 IP addresses, then you are going to need to implement 1 to 10 second time stops between each search. If you are going to use a bunch of proxies, or the trusted proxies Google extractor, you're going to need to randomly iterate through that list of proxies. And you don't want to go through it in sort of methodical list fashion, you want to do it randomly. Because if you go through it in list fashion, then it is likely that the time space between each search, for example if you had 5 proxies and it took you 2 seconds per search, every 10 seconds you would be doing a search from the first proxy. Now that shows a clear pattern to Google, and they may pin you for automated searching. As well, there's pretty much no efficiency benefit from going through a list versus randomly choosing from a list, and it will certainly make you look more natural to Google. The fourth step is to switch the user agent string each result. Again, you use whatever you're using to randomly choose your proxies or your time stops, and then you want to just go through the list of user agent strings that we chose in step 2. Step 5 is just simply to request the search URL. So I'm using the HTTP requests library or module in Python. Whatever you're using in your programming language, that will be absolutely fine. The 6th step is then to parse the returned HTML. This is probably the most important step within step 4, because this is the part where you actually mine the data out of Google. What will happen when you request the HTTP search URL, you will get sent back the HTML of the page. Now that looks like absolute gobbledygook if you don't know HTML, and the way Google have their search pages structured, it'll look like gobbledygook if you know HTML. So what you want to do is take out the data you want from that HTML. Most likely what you're looking for is the results. The results in a Google search page, or search result page, are stored within a h3 tag of class OR. So what that means is every search result is stored within the h3 tag, and each of the search results are given the class OR. So for example, they're differentiated from things like the ads on the page or other links within the page by Google giving them the class OR. And then what you want to do is retrieve the link from that tag. So what you do, if you extract all the h3 tags with the class OR, you'll simply be given a list of h3 tags. What you want to do is retrieve the link from each of those tags. Then what you want to do is, in step 7, store those links in memory. Now if you're doing a huge amount of searches, millions or even hundreds of thousands of searches, you are going to need either an external hard drive or a Dropbox account. That is because those searches storing that data will eat into the memory of your computer. So I would recommend an external hard drive or a Dropbox account to be absolutely fine, or any other cloud computing storage. I'm using the shelf database module within Python, and that's a really easy way to store data into memory using sort of a similar structure to a dict within Python. If you're using another programming language, I'm sure there's lots of modules to help you store data even within Python. I know there's other options to modules, but I found the shelf database module particularly easy to use and very efficient. Step 8 then is to regularly check the HTTP response code. So Google should send you back a 200 response code if all went well and you're looking natural to them. They will send you back either different HTTP response code or HTTP response headers if they catch you automatically searching, and then they'll probably request you to fill out a CAPTCHA form. What you want to do is, within your program, have some sort of way to catch if they catch you automatically searching. Now the best way to do that is to take back the HTTP headers and the HTTP response codes and compare them to what you expect. If they go off track, then what you want to do is just make sure you stop searching or you go through to the next proxy. And then you have some sort of way to stop yourself using that proxy again until you can manually look at why they caught you. Did something go wrong? Were you requesting too many from that query? Or if it's a shared proxy, was there other people requesting Google search results from the same proxy at the same time? And then the step 5, which is extremely important in terms of increasing your cost efficiencies, is to test your limits. What you want to do is you want to get a huge list of keywords, send a lot of them to Google over short periods of time, send a medium amount of them over medium periods of time, and really test where the biting point is in terms of costs and quality of results. Obviously, you don't want to be sending 10 requests per proxy because it's going to cost you a lot of money to do a lot of searches. And by the same fashion, you don't want to send a million requests per hour per proxy, because you're just going to get blocked by Google the whole time and it's going to be a pain in the ass fixing all the errors. And in the same fashion, you don't really want to be sending 100,000 per hour, because it's likely, even if somehow you manage to evade Google's trap, that they will there will be inefficiencies within the program in terms of them slowing down the results, because they'll probably look at you a little bit suspiciously. Some tools I use which are very handy. I get my proxies from trustedproxies.com. They have both normal proxies, parallel proxies, and a special service called Google Extractor. I use their normal proxies for requesting other web pages, but for Google searches I use the Google Extractor. Now the Google Extractor is something that pretty much does the random proxy iteration, time stops, all that stuff for you. I'd still recommend that if you are using non-Google Extractor or some sort of non-specialized service for Google, that you still do your time stops and your random proxy iteration. But if you're using the Trusted Proxies Google Extractor or a similar product or service, you can send, according to them, 600 queries per minute to that proxy, and it'll look perfect to Google. Now I haven't tested anywhere near up to that number of queries, partly because I don't need to, and partly because I don't have the computing power to send that number of queries per minute and retrieve and analyze the data and all that kind of stuff. But you can test, I'd imagine up to around 400 queries per minute would be absolutely fine. I wouldn't really push it beyond there, but you can contact them if you want to do anything above 600 queries per minute. I'm sure they can hook you up with some sort of option or plan. Within Python then, I've already covered the beautiful soup random module, the HTTP request library, and the shelf database modules. So that's for parsing HTML, choosing things from random lists or time stops, for requesting HTTP pages, and to store data in memory. I'm getting my list of keywords from the Google AdWords keyword tool. What I did was, for the purpose of the research, was I took the top 800 keywords for each of the 22 categories within the Google AdWords keyword tool. And that worked absolutely perfectly. Obviously, if you have a list of keywords that you regularly want to check related to your business, that's fine. But if you're doing some sort of study, or you just want to test out the limits or test out how your program works, you can get a bunch of keywords from the Google AdWords keyword tool. And then I've already covered why you need an external hard drive or Dropbox account if you're doing a lot of searching. So that's pretty much how you can automatically search Google. For me, it's worked absolutely perfectly. Some traps that I've found, my ISP, my internet service provider, blocked some proxy connections I made. So you might want to check out whether your ISP blocks that kind of stuff, and whether you're going to have any problem implementing any of this. Obviously, you're going to need a little programming knowledge and a little bit of money. That's about all you need to do this. I will, I presume, have my Python script below this video or on the website, theopenalgorithm.com. You can download it if you're not using Python. I'd still recommend you have a look at it, see how I did it, and then you can implement it in your own language. If you are using Python, take a look at my script. You might want to use it, you might want to customize it for your own means, or if you have figured out a better way to do it or some way to do it more effectively, please feel free to send in a comment or an email and tell me how you'd recommend doing it in a more cost-effective or resource-efficient way. Feel free to do that. I'm not a brilliant programmer, so the Python script works perfectly. It's relatively effective and efficient, but it's probably not the best it can be. But that is the general structure of how you can automatically search Google within reasonable cost efficiencies and to whatever customization you want. I've left it relatively open there. You can obviously take away anything you find unnecessary, add anything you want. For example, if you wanted to take out the ads within a page, you'd be able to do that, and if you wanted to set certain search parameters or whatever, you'd be able to do that as well. So hopefully you found the video good. Hopefully you're now able to go out and automatically search Google. Hopefully you're able to do some brilliant things with that data. Obviously Excel, the usual Access, SPSS if you're doing serious statistical analysis are excellent places to go and analyze those search results. Definitely a great way to reduce your costs and customize your Google scraping. So let me know what you think in the comments, or head over to theopenalgorithm.com to check out more videos like this, or leave a comment on the site. Thanks for watching. Bye.